next panel, which is going to be moderated by moi. I feel excited. I wanted to just grab my script from here. And of course, this second panel is all about blended families. Yes, counting the kids, taking care of them, making sure that they matter. So this is um, in this section, we're going to be talking about blended families, of course. I come from Africa. My husband is Caucasian. Um, Growing up, I never thought that I did not see myself as, getting married to somebody who was not maybe from my culture, because where I come from, were very, I would say, sometimes tribalistic to an extent. When you start dating somebody, one of the first questions that your parents will ask you is, where is he from? Is he from our tribe? Is he from this tribe? They'll call all the tribes around your neighborhood or around your community to make sure that, it's one of those people. Because I don't know, for some reason, parents, they just had that idea that, oh, if it's from here, then we know who they are, we know how they behave, we know how, but when you grow up and then you start traveling and you go to school, you meet different people, right? You never know who is going to end up stealing your heart. So that happened to me. I remember the very first time um, I had to tell my dad about my husband now. I had to tell my parents about him. I didn't quite know how to talk to them. Okay, let me say, first of all, here in the United States, I have my brothers and some cousins here who are like, they look out for me. And so they were the first people I had to introduce my husband to. And obviously, coming from a typically African family, the very first question was the obvious, what I know. Where is he from? Which tribe is he from? Is he from Bamenda? That's where I come from in Cameroon. Is he from the Southwest region or something? They called all the regions, just trying to figure out maybe where he comes from. But then, um, can you guys see my video? Or I don't know, something happened to the video there. All right. Okay, cool. I was just a little worried. Yeah, so I had to introduce my husband to my brothers. I was very, very scared to do that, because I already knew the obvious question, where is he from, which tribe, and all whatnot. And then I said, he's Caucasian and he's from here. And my brother was like, hmm, okay. All right. So, all those tribal questions, started coming up and all that. But then I had to let them know that, oh, he's this amazing person. And he treats me really nicely. He loves God. You want to tell them all those things that they want to hear. Because when you come from a typically African family, there's so many things that they want to hear first. They want to hear God. They want to hear, yeah, he's a good person. They want to hear he's a hardworking person. He's going to be able to take care of you and all that and stuff like that. So when all that juicy stuff went down, it was time for me to let the parents know, oh my gosh, my dad is a traditionalist, I'll tell you guys. So when I told him, the very first thing that came to his mind was, oh, so we'll never get to see our grandkids. I was like, Dad, Mom, why not? You guys will be able to see your grandkids. We'll come and visit. He was like, no, but when you marry somebody from over there, he's not from our tribe, he's not from our area. You'll never really see any interest coming back here with you or with the kids and all whatnot. But then we had to, you know, talk through it, and then they finally came to understand, and they realized that really it's not the skin color, it's really about the heart and about the person. So I just want to welcome all of you amazing people to this second segment where we talk about blended families. um Sharing with us this afternoon, we have two amazing ladies. We have Sharon Kelly and Kelly Smith. So let's get a little bio about Kelly Smith. I don't know who's the first person we have on there. So Kelly Smith is she's 32 years old. She's a resident of Atlanta. She's originally from Columbus, Ohio. In her professional career, she is a director of development of the College of Arts at Kennesaw State University, where she raises funding for scholarships programs, and capital investments. She is an alumni of Spelman College, where she majored in music with a vocal performance concentration. She also holds a master's degree in public administration and a concentration in nonprofit management and leadership. Now about Kelly Smith, about Sharon Kelly. Sharon Kelly is an author. She's a motivational speaker, certified personal life coach, entrepreneur, philanthropist, virtuous spirit-filled wife, finance professional, orator, and mother of 6 amazing children. Driven by the purpose to make a positive difference in the lives of others, Sharon has devoted her life to educating, empowering, and healing people in order to provide them meaning, direction, and fulfillment. She candidly presents lessons learned from her inspiring life's journey, speaking on diverse topics including healing from brokenness, freedom through forgiveness, overcoming sexual abuse, child rearing, and blended family life. So, without further ado, let's meet our panelists. Hello. Woohoo!
Hi,
Hello. Hi, everyone.
So good to see you, ladies. Thank you so much for joining and for accepting to, share your amazing stories, your lives with us, because here we tell it like it is. We're sharing. This is family. We're sharing to grow. We're sharing to learn. We're sharing to get better, right?
Right.
Right.
So I'm just going to give you guys the floor. Tell us a little bit about you. I know I already gave your bio out there, but then just whatever it is that you want the people to know about you first before we start.
Kelly, would you like to go first?
Sure. First, I want to thank you for thinking I'm 32 years old, but I am not. I've lived in Atlanta for 32 years, but I am 32 years old.
Oh, yes. Okay, my bad. You are
Okay.
yes, 32-year resident of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you for correcting me.
It's okay.
But you look 32.
I was going to say thank you so much.
I want to be 32 too.
It would be kind of funny if everybody thought I was 32 and I tell you later that I have a 21-year-old son.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes.
So I thought I would say, let me just make that correction really quick.
Woo.
Yeah, so I just want to thank Linda and you, Gwendolyn, and Sharon for, first of all, for us being a part of this panel. I am not married again yet, but I am not only the product of being raised by a single mom and grandmother, but I am also the daughter of a stepmother and stepfather. And I'm the product of a blended family. And I also witnessed with my own children just some of the heartache that they've experienced. And I say this carefully, but being forced into a blended family on the other side.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other side meaning with their their dad and stepmom.
Yeah.
And, so I'm just humbled is probably a better word, to be invited to be a part of this panel, to just be able to share some of my own personal experiences that I've had to help my children through.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay.
So I'm Sharon Kelly, and thank you again. Thank you, Gwendolyn. Thank you, Linda, for having me. It's nice to meet you, Kelly. I will tell you, no one signs up and no one dreams early on when they're growing up to be in a blended family. I'll be the first to say, it's not something, think about it. When we were kids, we didn't say, oh, we want to be in a step family. That wasn't something we dreamed about. And I was actually one of the ones who would say that would never happen to me. I know after being married for 16 years and going through a divorce, I thought I would never remarry. Had no desire of, and the words that I would say was, no man was going to ever tell my kids what to do. No other man would do that. And so now that I'm in that position and I am a stepmom and I am a bio mom, the blended family is something that you really have to be unified on. Being a mom of 6, having 5 biological children, 1 bonus son, to me, they're all my children.
Yes.
But there's a lot of different dynamics that you have to deal with. And I hope through this conference that we'll be able to shed some light, talk about some of those experiences, especially being that Kelly and I are both on 2 different ends. So I think this is going to be great for both perspectives. And it'll bring awareness to many people who don't really understand how important it is to have a strong foundation, to have a healthy foundation. A lot of times in blended families, people think dysfunction is the norm, and they believe the norm means normal, and it's not. It's not healthy for our children. It's not healthy for our families. We should all be working to do what's in the best interest of our family, as well as priority is our children.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you all so much. So we're just gonna get right into it. I'll tell you that from my personal side, I had a kid before getting married, and my husband also had a kid before getting married. And so we have 2 kids in marriage, so that makes it 4. That is a serious blend, right?
Yeah.
Because we have to deal with my side, we have to deal with his side, and then we have to deal with our own kids.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you said, it's so important as a parent to be in the center and not, have that discriminatory attitude. You have to be neutral. You have to put love before everything. That's what I would say. I never thought I could do it, but every single time that we had to cross stages or circumstances or issues, you had to remind yourself that you are the parent, that you both came into this. You promised these kids something. They're depending on you. They rely on you. And so you have to do your best to make sure you don't disappoint them. So we're going to start with the questions that you all sent, the questions that we got. What are the 5 main requirements for a successful marriage with a blended family? Let's start with you, Sharon Kelly.
I believe 1 is unity. I believe honesty, communication, understanding, and unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
I say all of those things because 1, for a marriage to work, you're going to have to be unified. Even in times where you have to agree to disagree, the children shouldn't know that. The family members shouldn't know that. You should always have a united front. In a blended family, you definitely have to be understanding because your children are coming from different types of brokenness, and understanding what those brokenness are and how we're going to handle that. You have to be willing to be honest about what your family is really about. A lot of times we'll go in there blindly thinking that our family is one thing, or having a plan. I know I'm a planner, and in my mind, I had a plan of what I thought my family was going to be like. And we have to have understanding that the plan may not work the way you expect it to, because there are different players involved. And you have to have unconditional love, because there's going to be times where you're not going to feel love. You're going to even be told that you aren't loved. You're going to be told that you aren't the mom or you aren't the dad. And you have to be willing to fight through that, because you're not there to be a back and forth. You're there to be consistent. You're there to be a foundation for them. And so I think all of those things are important. Honesty, unity, communication, commitment, understanding. Those are the fundamentals, I believe, into having a solid marriage, a solid family.
What about you, Kelly?
I wish I could speak to this as eloquently as Sharon did. I guess what I can say is, as I've been preparing myself, because I do want to be married again. I was married for 10 years, and then I've been divorced now 13 years. I've been preparing myself. I want to go into my next relationship accepting the children, if there are children, as openly and as lovingly as possible.
Yes.
Because I would want to raise my 2, even though I've got 2 children, a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old, and they are young adults,
Yes.
but they're still my children. Right. And I want to be as loving and as accepting. And, of course, depending on the age, if they're young adults or adults, then to be that friend. If they're younger children, minor children, but to still be as loving and as accepting and understanding, because coming from being a child in a blended situation to a blended marriage to now being a parent in a blended marriage, I feel like I have kind of a unique perspective on understanding the emotional dynamics that child is having to deal with, and just being in a support role of the co-parenting situation.
That's amazing. I would say that what you both said is really, really important. I think that unconditional love is what matters. A lot of times when parents go through certain situations, let's say in a case where both parents had kids and then they married and now they're no longer together, you still are the parents of those kids. They still know you as their parents. It becomes a little tricky when maybe you don't see eye to eye, and then you still have to raise your kids, right? But then you remember that you're the parent and you have that role in their lives. I remember growing up, my parents were married until my mom passed last year, for about 36 years. I never saw them quarrel, ever. I never saw them fighting or arguing aloud in front of us. I guess it's part of our African heritage that parents are not supposed to do that in front of the kids. I never heard my parents cursing, ever. I always thought maybe, when I heard people talk about that, like, oh, my mom and dad fought yesterday, they had a big fight and all whatnot. I was like, really? And so when I got married, first I had a failed relationship. Like I told you guys, I had a kid before getting married to my husband now. Things didn't quite work out in my other relationship. But after that, we had kids. We had a kid, and we had to manage to still raise the child without bringing in the remorse, the pain, and all what was in front of us. And I remember asking my mom, and I said, Mom, you guys never told us that marriage is so hard. Like, we always just saw it as, whoa, it's so beautiful. We just, you want to marry that person, those butterflies in your belly. And you don't think about the reality. Like, you don't really have an idea of how big it is. And especially when kids get involved, you don't really know that, you're being nice to these kids. But sometimes you hear those words come out like, oh, my mom, or I mean, not from me, but I've heard that in many other, like I have friends who have kids who have added to their family and stuff like that. And maybe sometimes you hear maybe the kid's mom would say, oh, she's not your child, or he's not your son, just because you're trying to correct them for something they did wrong, not doing anything wrong, but then you hear those things. And so it's really, really important. Like, even when you're getting into marriage, you have no idea how intense it is, the things that you have to leave inside, because kids, they matter. And the way you bring them up, if you're not careful, they can easily get derailed. And you don't want to be responsible for that, because you already accepted that you're going to be part of their lives. So let's move on to the next question now. Is it okay to have opposite sex friends in marriage? Like, if you're in a relationship, you have your husband, is he allowed to have maybe a friendship with the other person, like the other person who is his kid's mom, or maybe the kid's dad? Are they allowed to have those friendships, those kind of friendships that don't look like they're friendships? But I don't know. How do you guys look at that?
Sharon, I'll let you do that.
I am a strong believer in that it is unhealthy for married couples to have opposite sex relationships, primarily because I believe they can result into emotional affairs, which is something we talked about earlier. It's to me, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous because oftentimes what happens is you're me being a female. If I befriend someone at my job or someone out, that I've met with the social group of the opposite sex, and I start to get close to them, women oftentimes will start to share. You start sharing things about your spouse, and the next thing you know, your heart might be in the right place, but the other person's heart may not be. And before you know it, now that person is attracted to you, or you may start to be attracted to the person because now they're saying things that you want to hear at home that you aren't hearing. I think it's very dangerous to do so because of that. I think that it's unrealistic to believe that, as you're growing up, college or whatnot, you might not have opposite sex friendships. And then when you get married, that you think those friendships are going to just drop off. No, not necessarily. But I don't believe you should be on the phone hanging out, late at night on calls. I don't believe you should be hanging out together. I believe it's a recipe for disaster. I believe that's an opportunity for the enemy to come in to try to cause a division between you and your spouse. Now, when it comes to a co-parent, I am a strong believer in that there should be some sort of co-parenting relationship that might appear to be a friendship or may be a friendship. It's healthy, I believe, for the children. You should be able to have a conversation, be on the phone to talk to your co-parent about your child, and it not appear as though it's flirting or inappropriate. I wouldn't have a problem if my husband was on the phone with my bonus son's mother and they were talking about his school or talking about some challenges that he were having, or even sharing some things that aren't challenges, but just talking about some highlights or talking about some plans of things that they're thinking about. Now, in our home, me and my husband, we operate as one. So we operate as one unit, as a family. And so it's not your son, my four, and our child together. It's all 6 of these children are ours, and we're making collective decisions together about our children. Does that mean that he can't have a separate conversation with his ex about his son? Absolutely not. I promote that, just like he would promote me having a conversation with the 4 children that I had in my previous marriage. He would promote that. We want to have healthy relationships with our co-parents. It's helpful not just to us to be aware, because obviously many times there is a primary custodial parent where the child is living with that parent most of the time, and then you have visitations with the other parent, or it may be shared custody. It's important that a conversation is constantly had, since the child isn't living in one residence all the time with both parents. I think it's very healthy. And then it eliminates manipulation, between children when there does start to become problems, because if you don't have a communication pathway, the child is going to be aware of that. And what are they going to do? They're going to use that to their advantage at some point, especially because I don't care how long you've been married, children are going to want their parents to be together. They're going to want their parents to be together. They don't care how bad the relationship is. I have adult children. I have a 24-year-old, a 21-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 17-year-old.
Wow.
And from my first marriage. And I'm sure if you were to ask them, would they prefer their biological parents to be together, regardless of what they saw, they would say yes, regardless. And so we have to keep that in mind. So because we know that, we have to be understanding that there's going to be some things that children may say or do to one parent and not the other when they know there's no communication. And it's in the best interest of the child for there to be some sort of relationship. Children, even if you aren't saying anything, children know when there is tension between parents.
They do.
So if it's related to a co-parenting situation, I do believe it's healthy to have some sort of co-parenting / type of friendship where it is related to the child. It's healthy, and I think it's also healthy for the health of the marriage, for that to happen. And some people are not, I know, in agreement with that because they're concerned. Well, there was history, but there's also children who are a factor. So you have to consider that. But outside of that, I would not promote opposite sex relationships in a marriage. I'm sorry if I was long-winded with that. That's a big one for me. I think people take it too casually and they think, oh, it's not a big deal, and I'm not sleeping with him, so, or I'm not sleeping with her. But if you're confiding, there's an emotional affair that's occurring.
Then it could be a problem.
Yes.
I like what you said. Thank you so much, Sharon, for that. I like the fact that you stressed on the point that it has to be related to the child.
Yes.
I had instances of people. I have this friend who told me about her husband being too close to his daughter's mom. They actually go out on dates and, they talk for long hours on the phone. And she's like, is it just about the kid or is there something more? So I like the fact that you stressed out that point that it has to be related to the child. Whatever it is that they're talking about has to be related to the child, but it should not go beyond that because, like you said, they always say old firewood will always catch a fire faster, right? So it means that they've been there, they could still be there, and they could come back. So it's something to keep an eye on. What about you, Kelly?
Well, again, so I'm not in any kind of marriage relationship, but I will speak to the co-parenting. At first, when my ex and I divorced, we agreed to have a very amicable co-parenting relationship. And then it wasn't. It turned out to, the situation could have been something truly on reality TV. But I wished we would have had a better co-parenting relationship because I saw the effects of it on my kids.
Oh.
I saw where, and they both reacted very differently, but I would see where my daughter would sometimes play favorites when she was younger, or she would try to put one of us against the other, and more so she was trying to be she was a daddy's girl and didn't always like how I was doing things because she lived with me. My son, on the other hand, when I would speak to my ex about something that my son was having an issue with, and it was something that was contentious between the two of them, and I was addressing my ex-husband as the father, as I should have, my ex-husband did not discuss those things with me. He would come back around, take it out on my son, and then my son would blame me for saying something to his dad.
Oh.
And so a co-parenting relationship is vital.
Yes.
If you can figure out how to work through differences, especially if it's contentious, because it's for the benefit of the kids. It's not about me. It's not about, it's not about you. It's about the children. And if you can keep that the focus, just like Sharon said, that is the most important thing, is keeping the children the focus. Unfortunately, in some relationships, that does not stay the focus. And it becomes, a campaign on yourself of, what I get out of this and what I need to do and what I have to do, and I'm going to do what I have to do, and I'm going to parent my son or daughter the way I want to, no matter what you say. Then it becomes, this, I have to be one way with dad, and then I have to change and be another way when rather than being the bridge for them to just be grow up and be a healthy individual. And that was my message that I was trying to convey, and that eventually I just had to stop fighting and do what I needed to do that was for my children. And that was what I had to do. It was not what I wanted. But if you can keep your children first and be the best co-parent that you can be, no matter what the situation.
Thank you so much for that. Now, I just feel like from what you talked about, there are challenges. I want to know, like you just talked about some of the challenges that you had, like, when you first got divorced with your husband, your ex-husband, with co-parenting and all that. can we talk about some of those challenges? Like, did you have one particular moment where you thought, oh my God, this is just too much for me to handle. I don't know what to do. How did you get over it? Did you seek for help, or how did you make it happen? How did you make it work?
So quick story. And like I said, it was a made for drama TV show, reality TV. Like I said, me and my ex, we were co-parenting really well at first. And then my friend decided to get in the mix. And she, just being completely transparent, figured out that she wanted to date my ex.
Oh,
And we were already divorced, but the way she imposed it was that she wanted to be a better parent and show that she was a better parent than me to him. And, she used a lot of, quiet conversations that she and I would have, or things that I would just share. And then she just took it to him. And when they decided that they were going to connect, and she had 2 children, and then of course there were his 2, and then she was also raising her niece and nephew. So there were 4 on her side and 2 on mine, with my ex-husband. Whatever they talked about in getting together, it wounded my children pretty deeply, where it was about 7 years later when my son confided in me, and he said when his dad and her and the woman decided to get together, they approached all of the children all at one time, 6 of them. And my ex-husband told my 2 children, I won't be spending time with you anymore individually, because we're all going to be together. And this is going to be how it is. We're not changing it. We want everybody to be treated the same. And my children reacted. My daughter wanted to try to get and close and personal with her dad and fight for her position, because there were other children he was now going to be living with. And so she was going to fight for her position as his daughter. And you're not going to forget about me, Dad. My son was like, I'm good enough for you to spend time with me because I'm your son.
yes.
And if you don't want to spend time with me, then I don't want to spend time with you until you're ready to spend time with me.
Whoa.
And that's how my son reacted. And so after a while, he stopped going for visitation. After he could, in the age is 14, when a child can make their decision whether they want to go and spend time or not. What happened as a ripple effect, the relationship between my son and daughter became contentious, because my daughter didn't understand why she wasn't coming over for visitation. But then what was happening with my son, he would say, but there are things going on between me and Dad that I don't want to tell you about, that I have to protect you. And so it became this really contentious situation, where it wasn't until actually about 2 years ago when it all, and I had to kind of moderate conversation between the 2 of them so they could both understand how they were feeling and what happened. And then the light bulb went on, where my son was like, wow, I didn't realize that was going on with you, daughter, sister. And then my daughter was like, oh, I understand. I don't like the decision that you made, because you left me out and you left me feeling unprotected, but I understand. And so now slowly, like I said, 19 and 21, now slowly they are coming together to be brother and sister again. But that was a really hurtful time in both of their lives.
Wow, thank you so much. What about you, Sharon? Have you had any challenge co-parenting that really took a toll on you? How did you manage it?
I will tell you, Kelly, it's funny you say it, because you say a reality show. I laughed because that was us. That was, it was terrible. I said, unfortunately, society will watch reality that's dysfunctional. And at the beginning, we were very dysfunctional. I'm talking arguments and fussing, calls, texts, standing in front of the yard. It was terrible. And trying to defend everyone's position. Everybody wanted to defend their position. And I finally made a decision and said, you know what? I didn't sign up for dysfunction. I left dysfunction. I'm not going to enter into a marriage that's dysfunction, another marriage that's dysfunctional as well. I know what this is doing to our children. And so we have to make some decisions to do something different. And what are we going to do? What does that look like? So for me, we made a decision to say we were going to stop with the back and forth. If the conversation wasn't directly related to the children and it wasn't healthy, we weren't entertaining it. If it was name calling to us, we weren't entertaining it. We weren't defending ourselves. We weren't responding to the texts or asking for explanations when we didn't owe one. We weren't responding to the situation where children are being caught between two parents and adults aren't making the best decision and are using children as pawns to pass messages. We weren't responding to those things. I'm an advocate for going to therapy. I'm very much so. But the thing is, when you're going to a therapist, you have to go to a therapist that understands the dynamic of a blended family. That understands it so much so they've studied it. They know how to talk to you about some of the challenges. And our problem was we were going to a therapist who had no clue about, blended families. And until we found the right one, that was when we were able to get on the right path and start making decisions to say, these are the things we're no longer going to do. This is about doing what's in the best interest of the child. Communicating with the co-parent who is hostile, who is high conflict, by going back and forth is not healthy. It doesn't add fruit to the family. It doesn't add fruit or substance to the children. So what are we going to do differently? So we had to change, my husband and I, we had to change how we were communicating, what we were going to communicate to, and how we were handling the children. Because the thing is that in a blended family, they come from brokenness, whether it's a loss, whether it's an absent parent, whether it's a divorce. And you have to be understanding that if you go into a relationship and the co-parent and the parent or the step-parent are not getting along, that just adds even further pain and hurt and brokenness than what they're already experiencing. So my husband and I were very intentional about making a decision to say, how are we going to make this better? I said earlier that oftentimes blended families are seen as they're supposed to be dysfunctional. The stepmother is not supposed to get along with the bio mom. The stepfather is not supposed to get along with the biological father. And that's not true. Those are all decisions that adults make. So we have to make a decision to say, how do we expect our family to look? What do we want our family to look? And what does healthy look like for us? And what are we willing to do to make it stop? So for us, it was making a hardcore decision to say what we were no longer going to respond to, because ultimately we were responsible for how we responded. We couldn't blame the co-parent. We couldn't blame the children. We couldn't do any of those things. We had to make a decision to say what we wanted to do better and what we were willing to do individually. And I think a lot of it has to do with, we go into these blended situations or even marriages and, we're so prepared for the marriage, and we're not really prepared. Feel prepared for the wedding and not really prepared for the marriage. We plan the dress, we plan the location and all of those things, but we don't really do the study of how we're going to handle the dynamic of a blended family, the co-parenting, the working with the ex, how we're going to handle the children and the different things that they're going through. And when my husband and I got married, we had 5 children. And so 4 from my previous marriage and 1 from his previous relationship. All 5 of them had all different emotions, different things going on with them. Even to this day, still have different emotions, different things, because even the 4 children who grew up in the same home, they still have different thoughts and processes of how they see the divorce of me and their father. Different thoughts and processes, how they understand and deal with having a blended family. And even our 7-year-old and then our 3-year-old who we have together, they all have different thoughts and emotions of how they see a blended family. And so we have to be mindful of those things. So when we're adding additional high conflict situations, that just adds an additional burden on children that they don't need.
Wow. That's really, really important. Dialogue, communication, being, standing on your decisions, like making the decisions that would work best for the children, and just leaving out whatever it is that will not work. I think that that's something that's so important because, like you said, we plan everything else. We don't plan for this, right? You
Right.
don't plan for all what's going to come. When you're married now, you're living the reality. The kids are there. They have to go over to this parent and come back home. They go over there. Maybe they have different ways, different things they do there. When they come back in your house, you have your discipline. You have to manage all that. And
Yes.
as a parent, you just really have to be in that neutral spot. Now, let's talk about sharing love. How do you share love without appearing to be discriminatory as a parent? Like, even though this is not my biological child, now they are linked to you. How do you manage that situation as a parent in a blended home?
Sharon, go ahead. You're in the blended home. I'm not yet.
I believe you manage it by, I know for us, we made a decision early on when in the dating phase that there was not, even before we dated, we made a decision that this wasn't going to be your children and my children, it was our children. And we were going to operate as one family as best as we're able to. We're going to love all of our children the same. They're going to all have different needs, desires, wants, and we're going to have to address them all individually. We're going to have to spend time with them individually. We're going to spend time with them together. We're big on the, I don't believe that just because you come into a blended family and you had your children or he had his children, that you need that individualized time with your biological children just because you're in a blended situation. I think you needed that before you became blended. Like, I believe that each family, if you have children, your children all need their individualized time. That was something that I did prior to being remarried. So for me, it was not uncomfortable for me for my husband to spend time with his biological son alone. I promoted that. I encouraged that. It was not uncomfortable for me to spend time with my four children individually. We promoted that because we understood that those were things that were needed. We made a decision early on that it's not an option. Although I do understand that there are some families who can't make that decision because of whatever reason. Maybe they haven't had an opportunity to develop a relationship with the child. But I believe love is a choice. So we choose to love them. And it's something that develops and grows over time as we get to know them, as we spend time with them, as we are understanding, as we give them opportunity to talk, as we take an opportunity to sit and listen where they're coming from and what they're feeling. I believe that to love your biological children over your bonus children, to me, it just creates an additional type of pain and hurt and rejection. Oftentimes children are already feeling rejected in a blended situation because of the brokenness that they came from, whether it's the absent parent, whether it's the loss of a parent, whether it's not even knowing who their parent is. And then if you come into a blended situation and you're making a decision to not love that child and show that child less love than you and your biological children, all you're doing is adding to that pain, suffering, and hurt. And sometimes biological parents will feel intimidated in knowing that the step or the bonus parent loves their child as their own. They feel like they're trying to take over when it shouldn't be perceived that way. It's more love. You want them to have more love. I would much rather my child be in a home where they are loved just as much as I love them than to go in a home where they feel like they're loved less. And I think we have to get away from that thought process of being concerned of our children having too much love, because that's essentially what you're saying. You're afraid of your child being loved too much, because if you have a problem with someone loving them and caring for them just like their own, then that's basically what you're saying. Love should not be intimidating.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sharon, for sharing on that. That is so, so, so important. I'll tell you that personally, I've had that discussion with my husband because there was a period when my stepdaughter's mom, I think she felt threatened. I don't know what it was, but she had to remind me that that's not my kid. That's not your daughter. For some reason, and she said it in a way that came across as if I don't know, something was going on. We're talking on the phone. I think we're sharing about a beautiful experience. I'm trying to remember what it was. Okay, her daughter, my daughter loves to sing. Our daughter loves to sing, and so I have working as a journalist, I do have some friends who are like artists and stuff like that. So she did a song for an artist friend of mine, and this friend actually took it and put on her Instagram. She was happy. And so when I told her about it, this artist friend of mine was coming to the US for a concert, and she requested that our baby join, like, come on the set with her and everything. It was a happy thing. She was excited and everything. And so she called her mom and she was like, "Hey mom, do you know that this, da, 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 da?" And for some reason, she didn't take it that well. She wasn't happy. She wasn't having it. She was like, and we're just talking about it. I told her, hey, she loves to sing. She did this song on her own. And you know what? I posted it on my status. My friend took it. She put it on her status. She just loved it so much. And, this little white girl singing an African song and dancing, it was just beautiful to see, but her mom didn't take it that well. And so she had to step in and remind me that I'm not her mom. And I was like, I really didn't do anything wrong. Like, but we had to talk about it. We had to talk through it because those are things that will come, right? Even for little things that you think, oh, hey, I'm not really doing anything wrong. I'm just, putting just a simple thing as putting her picture on my status, it upsets her. She's like, if I say, oh, my beautiful princess, she's going to go see my beautiful biological daughter. And I'll be like, okay, I'm not getting into that. So, yeah, it's very, very important to be neutral, to just love more than you can even think, because these kids are yours, whether they're from your womb or not. So, my next question is going to Kelly Smith. Now, should the ex-parent be informed about a step-parent coming into their child's life? Let's say right now you said you're open, you want to get married again. Um, do you think that it's important for you to let your ex know that, hey, I'm talking to this person, things are getting on well, and or whatnot? Like, what do you think about that?
I think with minor children, it's important. And I guess it also depends on the relationship or what kind of situation you came out of, because it could be an abusive situation. But I think, all things being like we're talking about, I think it's important because now you're talking about another voice, in the future. You're talking about you're talking about a coming in to parent, and to be that friend parent, to be that parent. So I do think it's important. I was not given that courtesy. I wish I would have been, but I was not given that courtesy. I think it's a little different when you have adult children. I've got young adults. I don't think, as young adult children, my kids will be like, yeah, okay, whatever, mom, when's the wedding? And, when we show up and, yeah, mom, I like them. And mom, you good? You're happy? But I think with minor children, I think it's really important. As we've been saying, in this session, it's a part of all things together. And, are all the parents going to be best friends? Not necessarily. Could it happen? Yes, sure. But I still think it is important.
All righty. So I think that with that, we're going to take a break right now to hear from our vendors, and we'll be back. And this time around, we'll be talking about so many more things. We'll talk about the things that we share about our families with external people, maybe friends, relatives, and how it affects our relationship with our spouses, with our exes, with our kids, and all that. And of course, we'll also get into the Q&A. There's so many questions in the chat box. And you guys send in your questions, then we'll definitely be coming back to that. I'm going to give the floor over to Linda. We'll hear from some of our vendors, and I'll see you ladies very shortly. I don't know if Linda is there already. Yes, she is.
Yes, I'm here. Gwen, for the interest of time, let's round up your panel, do QAs, and then go to the vendors. Is that okay with you, ladies? Yes, let's do that.
Okay, yes, let's do that. Okay. Thank you, Linda, because I saw that we're going to have a break at 1:05. Oh, we still have a few minutes. Yeah, so let's just go on to the next question. Do you ladies think that it's okay to share, your challenges with co-parenting issues with friends, relatives? What has your experience been with that? I think that Kelly already told us she had a very bitter experience. Have you had anything like that, Sharon?
I do not believe that you should share co-parenting issues with you said your family?
Family, friends, just anybody, like trying to seek for maybe advice, or for whatever reason it is, like, are you supposed to go to other people to ask for questions, and who should you actually talk to in that case?
I believe if you're going to do that, it should be with people who are experienced in that area. So whether it is a therapist, whether it's a life coach, or someone who has actually been in that situation. It is very difficult in a blended family to have a conversation with someone who, what I refer to as an intact family, who does not have a blended family dynamic, because it is very different. When I think back to when I was married to my ex with my 4 children, the things that I'm experiencing now, I would not have been able to give anyone good advice. Back then, I would have said, girl, you better pack your bags and go. Now that I am in it, my thought process is totally different because I'm walking it. So I would not recommend it because I think it could be dangerous, because for one, they don't really, if you are not in a blended family dynamic, if you don't have step children, bonus children, a co-parent, an ex, then a person who is in an intact family really can't understand the whole dynamic of what a blended family really is, and what all the different issues that relate to or could possibly relate in a blended family. So not recommended unless it was someone who was experienced in that area.
I'll just piggyback on Sharon. I will say I have a little bit of a different view than Sharon, because I live in a very family-oriented community, and my close friends, became family friends in my community. But they were also my support system, and so those were the folks that I did talk to and confide in, just because my situation was extremely messy and it was extremely public in my community. And so, I wasn't running around and talking to everyone and anyone, but I did confide in the people that were my family friends. They were my community, and they were my support. So I did confide in them because I needed them.
Okay. All right. So I guess we're going to take one last question here, and we'll start with Sharon. What are the greatest lessons you've learned from being in a blended family? Okay. What 3, I want you to pick 3 do's and don'ts, would you advise somebody out there? We have this is a seminar for wives and wives to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody out there might be in a relationship, they're going to get married soon, and they're getting into family with kids and all that. What would your 3 do's and don'ts be for them? So those are 2 questions. We want to hear the first, the greatest lessons you've learned from being in a blended family, how you managed to make it work. And then the second question, your 3 do's and don'ts, based on your experience, of course, on how to deal and, have a better blended family?
Wow, that was a loaded question.
So,
Okay.
first one and then the second one.
Okay. So the first one, I'm sorry, repeat it one more time, Gwen. The first question.
What's the greatest lesson you've learned from being in a blended family?
Okay. So my greatest lesson learned in being in a blended family is finding ensuring that you talk about what you expect your family to look like prior to going in. I know my husband and I talked about it, but we talked about it at a higher level. So there were many things that we experienced that we probably would not have if we had been more educated about what went into having a blended family. So my greatest lesson learned would be understanding what exactly do you want your family to look like before going into it, and knowing what you're going to do to get there.
Okay. And then the second question, maybe if you want to relax, we can let Kelly speak first, and then we'll come back to the last question while you're preparing your 3 do's and don'ts. From your experience, based on your experience, what are the 3 things you think you should do? It could work, or you should not do. It may just spoil everything. So just cool off, think about that. Let's hear from Kelly.
Okay.
So what question do you want me to answer before the 3?
The greatest lesson that you've learned from being in a blended family.
As the child of a blended family, because I'm not on the other side of it yet, but as the child of a blended family, I think one of the greatest lessons that I have learned to bring forward is to I would say not let the stepchildren feel like stepchildren. And the reason I say that is because I didn't grow up with a dad. My dad, he was alive, but we didn't have a great relationship until I was 24 years old. My mom remarried when I was 15. And so my biological dad is Pop, my stepdad is Dad. And that's, because he was in my life for 5 years before they got married. And he made me feel like a daughter until he didn't. When he was made to choose between me and his children. Oh. And this was just, it was maybe about 10 years ago or so. And that was the first time in my life I felt like a stepdaughter. Oh. And so that's the thing that I would say that I will bring forward, is to not make my stepchildren feel like stepchildren.
That's very deep. Thank you for sharing that. It's really important. Like we've been saying from the beginning, unconditional love is what matters. And even if your kids are going to be raised by another person who is now in their dad or in their mom's life, you don't want your kids to feel like they don't belong. It's important. And even you, if it happens, maybe for someone who's married, if you're already in a blended family, you want to be, that person, that rock to these kids. You want to be that person where they feel totally safe, to run to. They can tell you anything they want without being scared of you thinking, oh, they're not my kid anyways. So it's so important. So let's go to the 3 do's and don'ts. We're over time already, so we just have a minute each or less, maybe. 3 do's and don'ts.
Okay, I would say the 3 do's would be: do communicate efficiently and effectively, 2, be honest, and 3, be unified. That would be my 3 do's. My don't would be: don't have unrealistic expectations. 2, don't judge. 3, and don't divide.
Wow.
So my 3 do's, I would say, Um, when it comes to minor children, I feel like they need to be courted, just like you're courting in the marriage relationship. I feel like the minor children need to be courted as well because they want to feel like they're part of the entire relationship. Number two, I would say to like I said before, make all of the children feel a part. But just like Sharon said before, you know, biological children still want to feel like they're yours. And so I would say spend time with each child. The don't, I would say don't forget to include young adult children, because they want to see the well-being of that older parent as much as a younger child does. So I think about that all the time going forward. I have, like I said, a 21-year-old son who's very protective of his mother, and he wants that she will be okay, as well as my daughter. My daughter tries to give me relationship advice as a 19-year-old. So number two, I would say probably don't take your relationship advice from your young adult children, except they do know you. And don't discount what they are saying, because there is some truth to what they are saying. So I guess I'll just wrap it up and stop there.
All right, ladies, thank you all so much. That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. With this, we're getting into our vendors section, and I'm giving it over to Linda.
Ladies, just thank you for sharing so authentically. Gwen, thank you for moderating this panel. And I know I'm not in a blended family, but I was taking notes because a lot of those principles don't necessarily have to be in a blended family for you to court your children, you know. I know I get frustrated some days and I have to remind myself that no, these are just kids, you know. And so thank you all so much. And I would like to, you know, we have some amazing vendors that are supporting this event today, and we're going to take a little breather so you can get out of your chairs, you know, relax a little bit. But please just stay tuned and hear from our vendors. Valerie, over to you. I know we have Red's Couture. She's a designer. I actually just ordered one of her bags. If you don't know me, I love bags. And she does custom made dresses. We have Catherine with Pure Romance. You know, we're talking about marriages, so we need that pure romance to spice up our marriages. And then we have Tammy with College Street, you know, nails. Who has time in COVID world to go sit and get nails done, right? So just amazing vendors. And so please stay tuned.
Everyone, my name is Nancy Bopea. I'm a fashion designer based here in Bloomington, Illinois. I have been in business for over 18 years now. I specialize in bridal wear, evening wear, and I also do some casual wear. Most of my work is characterized by handwork and a lot of beadwork. I love to work with intricate designs, and I use a lot of lace. I incorporate a lot of lace into my design. And also, being that I am from the Congo, Central Africa, most of my design have some African influence in them. With the pandemic that recently hit our nation, I had to think of an idea on how to keep income coming into my business. So I started making African print masks. With clients and business being slow, I always wanted to start or make purses. I had the time to start working on my handbag line, which should be displaying on the screen as I speak. You'll see a slideshow of my work, of my clothing line, as well as of my accessory line. Where to find me on social media? You can find me on Instagram at one word, Ritzy Couture. It's spelled REHTSECOUTURE. And you can find my new handbag line on Etsy.com at www.ritzycouture.etsy.com. Thank you.